Once Upon a Time in Big Sur by Clarissa Bell. Patricia Purwin, copyright 2022, all rights reserved, illustrator Keith Larson. Salinas Living Poetry and Prose Project Manager, Michael Houston. Narrators, John Tobin, Michael Houston, and Clarissa Bell. Inquiries may be directed to P.O. Box 7052, Carmel by the Sea, California, 93921. Chapter 1. It was during the sparsely attended Bruin home game at UCLA's own Jackie Robinson Stadium, not far from the sprawling Westwood campus and just set northeast of an endless expanse of sobering white headstones belonging to the neighbor VA cemetery, that Jean Noel found himself standing in line for a hot dog with Ron Cey. Ordinarily, to have stumbled so unexpectedly into the presence of the legendary former Dodger third baseman would have made Jean Noel's head spin in utter disbelief at his unparalleled good fortune. He would have, nevertheless, instinctively regained his presence of mind enough to request an autograph from the venerated MVP of the 1981 World Series that would have then gone on to become a treasured memento. As things stood now, however, nothing was further from his mind. Jean Noel did not, after all, come to Jackie Robinson Stadium on that particular Tuesday afternoon in search of the unexpected, but rather to avoid it at any cost. He came in hope of finding the monotonous, nothing more than the repetitive comfort always to be found in the languid passage of 9 hollowed innings punctuated by strikes, base hits, the occasional home run. With any luck, the game could easily slide into extra innings and thus prolong his solace indefinitely. He came to relax in his sun-warmed seat, content in the certainty that the rules of the game were being strictly enforced by qualified umpires who could be depended on to prevent anything unfair from ever happening, such as the unexpected death of one's own mother in her sleep the night before. Jean Noel was duly notified of his mother, Nathalie Dubois, passing at 4 a.m. that morning, even as he debated the wisdom of answering the phone at such an ungodly hour. Since when he had good news ever favored the wee hours of the morning? Siddhartha Gupta, his mother's oldest friend and now more recently her husband, reached Jean Noel at the basement apartment of the Sovereign Hotel, where along with his 2 feline companions, he was cat-sitting his fiancée's Alice's tortoise shell cat. All the while, Alice was off in Spain dispersing her own mother's ashes into an irrigation canal in Puerto Serrano. A painting of the picturesque canal, done in the pre-Raphaelite style, with the poetic addition of a flower-bedecked guitar floating downstream and painted by Alice's dear friend and foremost companion, Elspeth, graced the wall above his fiancée's sofa. It served as a solemn reminder to Jean Noel that Alice had once, and in the not-so-distant past, stood in grave need of a champion to defend herself against not only her best friend Helena, but also against the likes of her own mother. Oddly enough, Nathalie Dubois was not predisposed to dislike Alice. If anything, she had adored the girl prior to Jean Noel's announcement of his intention to marry her. His mother's reversal of attitude then presented something of a sensitive challenge to Jean Noel, who shied away from conflict as he strove valiantly in life to turn all swords into plowshares. But now that his mother was gone and not taken by the brain tumor they had all been anticipating, but rather by unexpected brain aneurysm in her sleep, he felt compelled to re-examine her ardently held prejudices, if only out of deference to the dead who could no longer, let it be said, speak for themselves. And so it was that, practically speaking, Jean Noel realized that his mother had a point in cautioning him to refrain from rushing into a marriage she felt was clearly predicated on her own ill health. However, when she went so far as to insist that the marriage should never go forward if the decision was being influenced in any way by an auspicious tarot card reading, her devious cross-purposes were glaringly laid bare. For hadn't that been the exact same pretext upon which she hastily eloped with Siddhartha Gupta to the Carmel Highlands, and without telling a soul? In need of a new and preferably less hypocritical premise on which to build her case against Alice, Natalie found it in the Chinese zodiac. Jean Noel, she argued, had been born like herself in the year of the goat, and such they were considered to be both sensitive and creative free spirits. A true goat, Natalie insisted, would quickly tire of Alice, born as she had been in the year of the dog. For although dogs are, of course, admirably true and faithful, they also nip hopelessly at the heels of their charges, incessantly corralling them out of harm's way with what might be called their sweet, yet annoyingly overprotective natures. What worse anathema could there possibly be in this world for a carefree and frisky goat? Jean Noel had listened with mild amusement to all his mother's flimsy and self-serving arguments, while always keeping one salient point strictly to himself. In the intervening years since 1981, when he had been but 6 years old and about to embark on a new life of Parisian boarding schools, weekends with his grandparents, and only a meager month or two each summer spent with his mother in Los Angeles, he had never divulged the life-changing incident that had taken place one otherwise seemingly normal day. Jean Noel had slipped into the inner sanctum of his mother's bedroom before her return from work to watch the 6th game of the World Series on her personal TV set, which, though off-limits to his use, he preferred to the one in the living room. It may have been the comfort of that magical chamber itself, replete with Natalie's various likenesses of Ganesh and Hanuman scattered about, or the soothing scent of amber as it emanated from its intricately carved rosewood box on her dresser, or the crystal prism that dangled in the bay window, causing the room to dance with a myriad of rainbows at certain times of the day that had lured the child to taste from the forbidden fruit. Sitting at his television set in the west-facing bay window, it stood out prominently from the dark background of the world outside, in which the sun was eerily dipping just below the horizon, when at that precise moment and without warning, the entire bay window, the television set, and the seemingly room itself exploded in one exceedingly quick and violent flash of green. Jean Noel had fled the room in a blind panic, guiltily assuming that his diminutive 6-year-old person had somehow gone and blown up the TV. Later in life, John would learn, from Jules Verne no less, that he had actually witnessed was the elusive green ray, and from that day forward he could never be mistaken in love. And the boy had been forced to miss the rest of the baseball game, in which Ron Cey dramatically clinched the World Series title for the LA Dodgers, proving once again that life from the onset is nothing if not one long succession of heart-wrenching trade-offs.